week off. Welcome back in, everyone, here on Back of the Crib. My name is Jeremy Poplin. That is Dion Amade. Hope that everyone had a great holiday season. Actually, we're not out of the holidays yet, but a great Christmas as we are looking forward to the college football quarterfinal matchups that are beginning starting tomorrow night. What is up, Dion Amade? Hope you had a good Christmas, man.
You too, man. You too. It wasn't too bad in my household. Went back to Dallas and kicked it for a little bit, but other than that, there's no. Christmas at our house isn't like a big ordeal. I mean, anymore. I mean, everybody's grown and no kids
Yeah,
running around.
right. It's a little weird. Yeah, our daughter is the last like kid of the family unit. My immediate family that lives around. So it's a little different, and we actually did something different for Christmas this year where I don't know if it's necessarily I get them confused. It's like white elephant, dirty Santa. I don't know. Anyway, everyone
Some girl
brought
was giving me a hard time about that, not knowing which one was which. I was like, bro, I don't know. Which
yeah,
is,
it,
yeah,
everyone brought a gift, and then everyone got like a dice, and you rolled it, and whatever number that it landed on, like a two, everyone passed the gift to the right. If it landed on a three, everyone passed it to the left. If it opened on a four or landed on a four, you opened it. If it landed on a five, you got to steal a gift. And if it landed on a one, like nothing happened, and you kept going. The only complaint is when you got too many people that are trying to play, it took forever for everyone to finally get all the gifts open
yeah,
because it seemed like that no one could roll a four where you were open the gift. But we played that at the family for the first time. It's the first time that we didn't buy for everyone that was in attendance for the
yeah.
very first time. Now everyone still got my daughter a gift because again, she's the
The
last
kid,
kid.
yeah.
And I think the next youngest at that point is like, I think 19 or 20. So,
Oh,
it hits a little bit different. But yeah, it was a little different this year. It had a little bit of a different feel as well. And then my grandparents are getting older, and my grandfather's been in poor health, so it was great to have him back home. But it also kind of made at least me kind of readjust. I think, um, and every now and then you need that like subtle reminder about what this holiday is supposed to be about, you know.
mm.
And I definitely felt like I got a little bit more of that this year than I have in the past.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with just general health.
Yeah.
My grandfather's been through the ringer over the past year or so. We're talking two brain surgeries, a hip replacement, two knee replacements. He fell over and broke his femur. Um,
Sheesh,
he's just been through a lot, and I
man.
think that was the reminder that no, you know what, it might not feel how it used to, how we used to remember it, or how I used to remember it as a kid, but
Yeah.
it definitely still had that impact though. Glad you got to go home though.
Yeah, man. I mean, the holidays doesn't go by without Mrs. Amade making sure that baby boy comes back home. I'm the only one that they don't see on the regular. So I get what you mean by you gotta remember what the holidays are truly about, and that's hanging out with family that you don't normally get to see, and give an opportunity to kind of like give thanks and relish in being inside each other's presence. So, I'm the one that comes back home and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, Dion's back in town." So it's good to see their faces and celebrate and do the family chores that's become a tradition.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I think when I text you, you were like, "I'm chopping vegetables for my mom right now."
Yeah. Yeah, man. Everybody got to help and put in, or mom's not going to. Bro, she's adamant about what, you're supposed to bring me a wife. You're supposed to bring me a wife. If you guys had wives, then I wouldn't be out here. I wouldn't be over here cooking by myself. So you got to help. Yeah, man. You get the holiday guilt trip.
Oh, that's right. None of you have significant others, right?
None, man. We're all single and and having fun out here, and my mom is complaining about it.
Uh-huh. And it's only going to get louder. It will
It
only get
keep it
louder
keeps
from
getting louder,
from
bro.
every year that you go by, too, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Before we get into anything that's happened just in this week, we did not have a show last week because of the holiday season. It was difficult trying to get everyone on the same schedule with
Yeah.
so many different things happening. But I feel like it'd be remiss if we didn't kind of go back a little bit. And I think there's only one thing that I want to really hit on, and that was I'm not surprised by anything anymore. But what I am at least a little bit surprised, or what I was surprised by, and then also became happy that a lot of the anger started shifting from the college football fan base towards ESPN and the network for the way that they were handling the college football, the first round matchups, and kind of what the talking points were after the games were over. But I was irritated AF with just Kirk Herbstreit and a lot of the talking heads at ESPN for the way that the first round was handled and how basically it just automatically shifted into, well, we told you that X team didn't deserve to be there instead of wrapping their arms around the sport, where we've had more change again in the last 5 years than we have pretty much in the entire history of the sport, knowing that there's never going to be the 100% absolutely perfect way to do this. Everyone just started pissing and moaning, old school type college football, old heads, that you were just like, do you even like the sport that you're covering? I love that there was legit backlash against the way that they were going out there speaking about the first round, because the best point I heard was, you mean to tell me just because some of the games weren't competitive, you'd rather go back to having the Citrus Bowl and no one caring and everyone opting out of that game and not giving a rat's whether they played in the game or not, compared to what we just have with meaningful games that count, giving teams an opportunity that in their way earn their way in. Like, it never made any sense to me, and I hated that it just instantly turned into anger and not celebrating the sport for how far that we've come in a very short amount of time in the last 5 years.
I always think that it's really silly how a specific generation, the older generation, always gets on to the younger generation about, oh, you guys need to get off social media and stop being so negative and the internet this and the internet that. And it's like, bro, you guys are doing the same
Yeah,
thing
you
just
get
on
on
a different
TV
platform.
and
Yeah,
do it.
bro. You're just being negative. Like, we're having fun right now. It's the holiday season and we're playing watching meaningful games with our like, bro, college football. And when you bring it down to its smallest point, it's sitting on the couch with mom or dad who enjoys the sport and then passing that tradition on to you. And to do that in the holiday season, you just get another opportunity to watch meaningful. My dad's over here calling me, "Hey, did you watch the SMU Penn State game? Did you watch?" Like, that's what football, like, I know it's probably a quarter of that, but that's what it's about, and that's what we should relish in, bro. Like, you over here complaining about it wasn't competitive enough and the committee did a terrible job and see this team didn't deserve it. Like, bro, just congratulate the individuals who prepared. And first of all, Ohio State did not think they had that in them. Did not
Well,
think.
yeah,
Penn State did not think you had that in you.
and we'll get
But
into those
yeah,
individual ones in a bit, but it the other thing that really bothered me was the negativity automatically went to the teams that lost, and it's like we didn't praise the teams that won at all, because you know this, having played, dude, it is hard to win on the road in big time college football environments. And what happened in that first round, dude? We had games in Columbus. We I mean, that place is hard enough to win unless you're
yeah,
Michigan over the past couple of years. We had games at Notre Dame. Like, there's a reason why that teams very rarely lose at home, and especially in meaningful games. That was going to be a tall task no matter what, even if SMU's quarterback Jennings started seeing ghosts by the time that the first quarter was over. I mean, that was one of the worst games I've seen him play ever. And I told you a couple of weeks ago, I watched a lot of SMU, but we didn't hammer home how difficult it actually is to go on the road and win. And maybe that's why a lot of those teams didn't go win on the road, because it's damn hard to do it, especially against good teams.
bro. It's they people forget the reason why college football is so dope is because people treat it as like a tribe. Like you get your identity in that specific area from those teams, and those atmospheres are crazy. On top of that, you get probably the most impressionable, rowdiest group in age group in one central area, and then they go to a football game and you tie in liquor and football. That makes for a crazy ass atmosphere, and it's hard to overcome that. As much as everybody wants to say I love playing on the road and it's all 133 of us versus everybody, all 11 or all 22 of us on this field versus everybody, that's not the way it is. And on top of that, the weather is a factor. And these teams coming into situations and atmospheres that they're not accustomed. Like, think about it, bro. College football is not a cold weather environment at all. I know the
No.
snow is cool and everything like that, but in this time of the year, Ohio State is used to playing in the Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State, Notre Dame, they're used to playing in the Orange Bowl. Like like playing at their home in this cold weather. SMU, all those schools, they had a lot to overcome, not just the teams that they were playing
And
against.
think about the cathedrals of the sport that got to be on display for a college football playoff game. Everyone talks about touchdown Jesus.
Yeah,
It was snowing that morning. Notre Dame is one of the people consider it to be like one of the founding fathers of the sport of football and going and playing a playoff game there. Happy Valley with Penn State. What do you hear all the time? Dude,
the
whiteout.
whiteout.
Whiteout. 110,000 people. You don't have any idea unless you come here and experience this what it's like. That got to be on display. What happened in Columbus? I've been to Columbus in the horseshoe twice now with Tulsa football. And it's one of those you're on the field level and you just look up and you're like, Jesus, this thing is
Yeah,
tall. Like it just keeps rising, and there's so many people that are right on top of you. And to see Tennessee fans take over the stadium, have like 30,000 people there to see one of the rabid fan bases. There are things that happen that I just felt like we just completely glossed over because we had
don't forget
games.
about Texas now. Don't forget
Well,
about
and then
Texas
and then
now. The
Austin as
odds of
well,
Texas are
right? I
upon
look,
you. Yeah.
I've been to Daryl K. Royal. I've been there. Tulsa played there in
Hmm.
2017, I think, and I
Yeah.
love the experience there. And it was before they had all the renovations that were done. So we just skipped over so much and went immediately towards the negative part. And all that happened was the same thing that happens every year. In the 24 previous playoff games that we had, of the 24, it's something like 14 of them were two score games, more than two scores, and 8 of the 24 were more than 3 touchdown scores.
Mm.
It was just like, what, this happens all the time. Like,
Yep.
teams get beat. Isn't the part of the playoff for us to figure out, oh, well, you were good enough to a certain extent, but now when you started playing this level of competition, one, you didn't survive the season through health. Two, you just weren't good enough. Isn't that what the playoff is for? Is to weed these teams out? I
Yeah.
mean, hell, last year the wild card round in the NFL had an average margin of victory of 17 points. This
Yeah.
happens in sports. Like, what are we doing? We made such a big deal out of it. It was really kind of gross, honestly. And I am so happy that people that even work at the same network were calling people like Kirk Herbstreit out. Oh, I was
Mm.
like, yes, yes, let's go. Let's go. Let him have it because he just kept doubling down on the same dumb points. And I'm like, man, you're missing the entire point of this. And you're supposed to be the biggest cheerleader for the sport that there is.
He needs to chill because his bank account is getting padded. The more games they add, the more money he's gonna make. So he needs to just chill on that, bro. Because you want this 12-team playoff, and if they move it to 16 or 18, you're gonna be happy as well too. So
And I kept
let's relax.
screaming during the Tennessee Ohio State game. I was like, come on, Kirk, keep that same energy, buddy. You're going to
Mm.
say that about Indiana. You're going to say that about some of these other schools. You're watching an SEC team get their ass handed to them, and you're not saying anything about it right now.
Oh, he
And
knows
he
he
didn't.
knows where his bread is
Oh,
buttered.
of course he does. Of course he does. But yeah, that was just kind of some general thoughts here over the past week or so. All right, man, we've had a lot that has happened over the past. Let's see. Well, we haven't been here in the last week. We didn't do a show last week, so we got a lot to get to. And Dion, I don't think that we need to start anywhere else than what exactly happened in I want to say in Norman, but with the Oklahoma Sooners and losing of a defensive coordinator, because there was a point on Saturday evening when all of this was going down, and there were rumblings before the bowl game even happened with Rich Rod going back to West Virginia and his ties to Zach Alley about, is this a guy that he would potentially look at? And would Zach Alley even be interested in this? And the answer that he gave after the bowl game, after the loss to Navy, which is a whole other story, is one of those that you're like, man, he didn't just come out and say, hey, I'm going to be back. Like he had the pretty standard coach's response, which is, man, I'm excited about this team coming into next year. And it's like, well, you didn't really deny anything in the post game radio show. And then boom, the Pete Thamel bomb, which was, guess what? Zach Alley is headed to Morgantown to work with Rich Rodriguez, and that was the photo that was tweeted out there from Zach Alley on the West Virginia football account, and when it becomes official. And dude, it was about as negative on social media from OU fans that I can remember since Lincoln Riley left. Now,
Yeah,
the
man.
difference was Lincoln Riley and the hate still has legs, and it will still forever be there. And it carried on forever. This will die down because it's not the head coach, it's a 1 year defensive coordinator. But Saturday night into Sunday and even a part of today, it was about as angry and befuddled as a fan base has been in a very long time from a Sooner perspective since Lincoln Riley left. I don't know. Were you surprised when you saw it?
So I only found out through and
By the way, I'm going to
surprised.
stop you right there for a minute. This son of a bitch kicker that the 49ers have in Nick Moody just missed another field goal, wasted a third round pick on his ass, and he misses one right before halftime. I'm done. Like normally I've got the kicker's back, whatever. Dude, you can't keep missing field goals. It's time to go.
Bro,
They've
bro,
just
it's
got,
been
you know
a
what?
rough year for kickers,
They,
bro.
they've got to swallow the fact that they wasted a third round draft pick on a kicker. And one, never do that again. And just let's just move on. Let's just move on. Sorry, I had to get that out of the way.
Never, never. But back to back to what I was saying. I didn't find out about this until Colby hit us up in the group message and was like, "Guys, OU and OU Twitter is going crazy right now." And I was like, "What happened?" And then he said DC news, and I was like, "What?" And again, I'm on holiday break. OSU isn't in a bowl game. I've kind of just been, in and
You got
out
your
of
feet
college
up.
football.
You you
Yeah,
you got your golf clubs.
I've got my golf clubs. I'm in and out. And so I started, quickly like doing my own research, and I was like, what the hell happened to college football, Pop? Where what's going on in I'm coming to you asking to explain to me and the listeners about, bro, when you get an Oklahoma job, when you get a Texas job, when you get an Ohio State job, when you get a Michigan job, you don't just up and leave for a school, no offense, called
Yeah,
West
wait a minute. You can't
Virginia.
you can't drop that because the minute you drop no offense, you're taking a shot at West Virginia.
I'm not no shot at West Virginia. Like again, like no disrespect at all. I know you guys had your years with Geno Smith and Tavon Austin and all that hoopla, but like, bruh, like a guy who you're making somewhat of a lateral movement at best, but more than likely a decline in like being the defensive coordinator for West Virginia. Like, what's going on here where you leave a job at OU and you go to West Virginia? Pop, please explain this to us.
Well, without Zach Alley, though, I don't know if there, without him just coming out and telling us, I don't know if there is a real explanation because I think it could be a number of things, a combination of things that ultimately make something like this possible. But I will say, Zach Alley is what, 30?
Yeah.
So he's a young dude. Um, I know that the older that I get, I think about this, and I heard Plank talk about this today because we were texting back and forth while he was doing his radio show. I was really bored at work, so I was just blowing my man Plank up on on his phone, and I apologized for it. But the older that I get, and this is just one part of it, I look back to situations that I was in and kind of the setting and the fun that I was having, where I wasn't making any money at all. Not that I'm
Mm.
getting rich now by any means. I wasn't making any money, but dude, I was
Not yet.
probably having
Sponsors, if you want to sponsor the show, go ahead and hit us up.
I was probably having the most fun of any point in time during my radio career. And if the money could have only been just a little bit better, but you truly appreciate those that are you're working with, whether it's a good boss or just the culture that's around you.
Yeah.
And he's 30. He's got a lot of coaching experience already. But I do know this is that he absolutely loves Rich Rodriguez, loves the dude. And Rich Rodriguez, they've worked together a number of years, whether it's at ULM, whether it's at Jacksonville State. And even though he considered Brent Venables to be his mentor, just because someone is your mentor doesn't mean that you can't or you didn't enjoy working for someone else a little bit more. That's just pure speculation on my part. But I do know people that have worked with Rich Rod that absolutely love that dude and
Hmm.
praise that guy. And Zach Alley had to have felt that the situation at West Virginia was one that was more compatible with not only environment and also a head coach that was more than likely going to let him run the show defensively. Because you know as well as I do, like that's that's still Brent Venables' defense,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
if Zach Alley, who's been described as a giant analytics guy, a guy that is, by the way, very well versed in the stack defense. He's very well versed in multiple styles. You know, like this year he comes back to Oklahoma and he jumps back into more of a traditional 3 and 4 man front. But at Jacksonville, dude, he's doing like 3-2-6. They're doing 2-3-6 at sometimes. They're doing like 7 defensive backs at one point. Like he's got all these different ideas and philosophy on top of just like a 3-3-5 stack that they've been doing. Like he's got all these like just different ways because he's had to be creative with his defenses because of the level of talent that they've had, like at ULM, where they're sending way more pressure than they would at other places. The caliber
Yeah.
of athlete steps up a little bit on that. So pure speculation, he probably wanted this to be his defense. And Rich
Mm.
Rod was like, this will be your show, man. This will be your show. Not only that, but they were able to secure the bag for him. If you, depending on what reports that you believe, and I'm not saying that Oklahoma wouldn't have anteed up because of course they would have if they'd known that they were going to lose him, but they didn't think that they were going to. But I mean, I saw one report today that said it could be as much as 1.6 million to run the defense in Morgantown. He's making 850 this year at Oklahoma. Was probably going to get bumped up to 900. This is a first year coordinator. And say what you want. I saw some people today be like, that's not that much difference in money. To who?
To who?
to, to who? But I just think that there's so many things we forget that some people are wired a little bit differently. Some people want complete control. Some people want good working environments. Some people are just focused on just money. And there are some people, the rare few, that love a combination of everything that goes into it. And I don't know Zach Alley from these AirPods right here. I just don't. But you can read between the lines on some of the stuff, and also read about people that have worked with him and kind of listen to the tea leaves a little bit about what people had to say. And you kind of put this and paint this picture where Zach Alley just might have felt a little bit more comfortable going and working with Rich Rod, where it was it was his defense that was going to be taking place in West Virginia. And dude, maybe I'm wrong on this. I think college football has changed so much that it doesn't necessarily always have to come from the traditional blue blood, power four conference where you can take advantage of where you're at and take the next giant leap. You mean to tell me that if he doesn't, he can go to West Virginia, do his own version of his defense, be successful, and you're trying to tell me that he can't get a power four gig from building a kick ass defense at West Virginia? He absolutely can. Look at how the cycle has changed with some of these coaches and some of the jobs that they've decided to keep here over the past couple of years instead of just leaping towards the next bottom rung power four school.
That, I
Like, I,
mean,
I just think so much of it has changed, man, that it doesn't necessarily have to be the same path that we were used to for decades for these guys.
Pop, you're saying all that, and I truly agree. But also, you have to look at the other side of this, and this goes in any industry, in any quote unquote profession or sport. The point of working your way up the ladder is to make it to a certain point that once you prove yourself, you prove that you can get it done on a specific level. If
Yeah.
you take a step down and God forbid, here in the situation, Zach Alley doesn't make anything of himself. The defense is trash. You're not gonna get another. Who's to say you get another opportunity at one of these top-notch blue blood schools? What if
I
this
don't
was
buy
his?
that.
What if this is one opportunity and he
At
looks at
30,
it and he threw it away?
at 30, man, as much as we go through retreads and the fact that he's 30, like he's still so young. Like I don't even take that point that you're talking about like in any not knocking on your point, but I don't
Yeah,
take that as like a serious thought running through his head because he's so young and so still so fresh in this. I mean, he was defensive coordinator at SEC school at 30, man. Like and by the way, their improvements that they had this year. And I don't think that this is detrimental to OU by any means. Like this is not me saying, "Oh my God, the sky is falling." Right?
yeah.
I think one, you got to address what's happening offensively first, and you still have
It's
Brent
not, but
Venables, who's your head coach. But this is how much they improved this year at Oklahoma. They went to 35th to points per game allowed, 35th in the country, which is way better than what they were. They were top 15 in run defense. They were top 15 in sacks. They were seventh in defensive efficiency. That's up from like 30 something or close to 40. Like they were much improved from where they were the year before he got there. So
but
like he's already proven himself from that standpoint.
here's the thing: it's still a bad look. It's still a bad look for a
Oh,
defensive coordinator to
yeah.
for all those improvements to happen, and now you're going out here trying to hire somebody, and they're like, "Well, why did that guy leave? Is Brent Venables like that? Rough to coach
Well,
with as a
there's
defensive
some of
coordinator?
that,
Is he not going to give you any type of control? Is this something you need to think about before you go over there and
but
be a
until
coach underneath him?"
until anyone speaks, and I don't even know if they will, it's hard for me to just put that and rubber stamp it that
Yeah,
it was a complete negative thing that happened. I mean, do we know any of the conversations that were happening behind the scenes? We can just go off of hearsay right now, off of what people are saying. And I know that there were a lot of people that were completely shocked by this. Oklahoma thought that they had him locked up like a few days before the game, and he just was like, let's get to it until after the game is over type situation.
bro, this was a guy who got hired last year, and everybody was talking about this could be your defensive coordinator for the next 5 years. This could be, potentially
Unless
the
he
guy
wasn't the
who
D
gets hired
coordinator.
after, huh?
Unless he wasn't the D coordinator. Back to my original point.
That's what I'm saying.
The guys could be your mentor and you can disagree with them too. Maybe, just maybe, he didn't have the type of input that he wanted when you have a title. I can go back and I remember an old offensive coordinator that I knew that had the title, but didn't have the play calling to
Hmm.
go along with it. And he looked at me one time and said, I will never take the title again without having the play calling ever.
Yeah,
Ever. And so, sometimes it just takes getting in there and experiencing it. And I'm not saying that that's what happened here with Zach Alley. Just trying to think of what ways does this make sense without just everyone absolutely freaking out about it from a point to where you're you're automatically looking at, the doomsday scenario.
I
Like,
mean,
this doesn't necessarily mean that Brent Venables is going to be a failure next year or the year after that or however long that he has it. I mean, he's got significant challenges, and to me, those challenges don't necessarily exist on that side of the ball as of right now.
it's almost better for OU if he comes out and that West Virginia defensive coordinator number comes out and they're like, yeah, we gave him 1.6 and OU was giving me 8, so I had to leave. That's like almost the best case scenario for them in that standpoint because it's like,
Yeah,
bro,
somewhere
money
between
talks.
1.5 and 1.6 from what I read today, without knowing for sure.
That's a big jump, bro. That's a big
Yeah, it
jump.
is. It is an absolute big jump. Um, I don't know what specific role that Venables has to play in this, whether he, without any knowledge of his own, kind of forced this upon Zach Alley with just the way that he handles things and controls things. But I do know that, not putting all the blame on a head coach, but let's, if we can just be honest here. I mean, it was one of the concerns I think that a lot of people had when he first took the gig, which is, all right, my man is in his 50s. He waited forever, right, to take a head coaching position. And that's fine. That's
Yeah.
his right. It's his right. But how many head coaches, Dion, have you talked to that haven't been 5, 6 years into the situation as a head coach and say, man, I've learned a lot in 5 or 6 years about how to become a head coach. So he's trying to learn how to become a head coach in the middle of one of the craziest times of college football, right?
Yeah.
With changes
Yeah.
all the way from general managers to director of player ops to all this NFL model stuff to NIL happening to jumping to the SEC to having all the pressure put on you because it's Oklahoma and because you're looking to make a fool of the guy that left you to go to USC and get back to the Bob Stoops ways of winning. There's a lot of pressure on that dude, on top of his wife being in poor health. I mean,
Yeah.
that dude, he's having to balance a lot right now. And I'm not here saying that he forced this one way or the other, but it's I can see why it's easy for some people to jump to a conclusion like that of saying that this is a disaster. I don't think that it's a disaster by any means because the people that I know would flat out tell you, "Hey, this is a disaster that's happening," and none of them say that.
Mm.
They just haven't been able
Well,
to put it together in wins and losses, which is ultimately the real test.
the lesson here is for Zach Alley. Would you rather be a legend in Norman or a legend at the bank? My brother, go ahead, take that paper.
Dude, what's 1.5 in Morgantown?
A lot of couches. A lot of couches.
That's like 3 million in Coweta. Man, I live like a king over here.
A king. I'm a king of this thing.
Can live like an
Paid
absolute king.
paid cash.
But does any of that make sense? Like,
Yeah, a lot of it does. A lot of it does. I mean, but this is the game that we're in, though,
and it's a
because
lot of
we're not gonna,
turnover too.
bro, because we're not gonna get the story until somebody's willing to unveil it. We're gonna be able to speculate and kind of draw pictures and draw conclusions. And right now, I mean, what you're saying makes sense, and that's all that you can kind of grasp and lean on.
Here's the other thing from an Oklahoma perspective would be, to me anyway, would be like, okay, so all the turnover that's happened. We had turnover from Jeff Lebby because he was so good that he got a gig at a SEC school,
Yeah,
right? You got to be good and you got to be productive to get that gig, and he did. There were a lot of people that were not sad to see him go at all. You moved off of Ted Roof when we all knew that Brent Venables was basically your defensive coordinator in the first place, but it really wasn't working with Teddy. So you moved on from him. That was your decision to move on from that. Hey, it wasn't working, so let's get it out of here and get someone in that can actually do this. And you make this hire. You bring in Seth Luttrell, first year OC. That didn't work, and you got rid of him before the first year was over. So they haven't been afraid to make moves, but they've also had now moves that have worked out for them, which is going to happen in the landscape of college football because how many different assistants did those big time programs like Clemson and Alabama and Georgia, how
Georgia.
many of those
Yeah.
guys they cycled through a lot? I mean, if you were to put a list together of everyone that Nick Saban lost over his course, I mean, it would make your head spin. Like if you're good, like people are going to come at you and look for you, especially if you're doing it like at a program like Oklahoma.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, if your guys have a name, that name is going to be called. And I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do next. And
Yeah.
but that's
Now
the
you
name of
sh-
the game.
you sure as hell don't want to have to be doing this every year, but
Nah.
it's hard to have a little bit of continuity if you're having to do this year in year out. What's the word on Oklahoma State? I know we were saying off the air earlier. It's a little hard to keep up with all the portal acquisitions, but I mean, from it looks like they've had at least some pretty decent luck in the portal with some of the names that they brought in. But man, it's hard to keep track of it all right now.
Bro, it's a whirlwind, honestly. Like again, I got I got a day job, bro. And keeping up with the portal is another day job. It's There's so much going on. There's something happening left and right all the time. There's players that you're getting and stuff like that. And I'm just like, all right, cool. But just show me what the roster looks like, when it's time to go back to school. And I'll do my research and looking like, and honestly, I'm just looking like you're getting these corners and again, this is probably, frowned upon from my brotherhood. But show me the big fellas, bro. Show me the offensive linemen. Show
Yeah,
me the defensive linemen. That's what I want to
got to
see.
build
I don't,
inside out, man.
bro. Again, Haas Henny, what the kid from TCU that played at Alito. Alito is a powerhouse in Texas. They are one of the big dogs now. Ever since Gray came from there, that the running back for Texas, they turn out players left and right. Then he goes to TCU and transfers after 1 year. I seen his highlight tape, seen what he could do, bruh. This is probably something that you don't hear a lot in football. I don't care about quarterbacks right now. I really do not care about. Honestly, I feel like we have three good ones that are going to be fighting for a job, and now you throw in this guy into the mix. Don't honestly care about that right now. Show me the beef. I want
Man,
defensive linemen. I want offensive linemen.
I went in and the Friday before Christmas, sat down in Trey Lamb's office, did
Yeah.
a little interview with him, TU's new coach. 19 minutes. You should check it out. It's on 6.com. Cheap plug. And his whole spiel at that time was one, we're hitting the portal so hard right now with our GM and staff because we may not have enough bodies to go through spring ball on the offensive line if we don't. And like he was saying, he's like, no offense, but we weren't good anyway. Like we weren't good, so we got one, we got to get better, but two, we got to get bodies too.
Yeah.
And then he started talking about on the D line because of losses that they've had. So yeah, it was. I've always been a big proponent of building inside out anyway, and to see, especially with the style of offense that Trey Lamb wants to run now, where the emphasis is going to be on run. It's a bit like the Tennessee offense, you know.
Yeah.
That's basically how you would sum up his offense and what the idea behind it is. Like, man, you got to be able to run the ball, and it all starts with those dudes up front. So it's
Bro.
kind of refreshing to hear that, honestly.
I mean, the more I get away from playing the game, the more I realize how important it is inside the trenches. And if you can win that battle, you can win a good amount of your games. Bro, just show me the guys that are going to be blocking and show me the guys that are going to be, rushing the passer because that's what you need. And that's what wins football games in the fourth quarter when you play in tough conferences.
All right, Dion, let's jump to whether or not that you are offended by this, whether or not this is disrespectful or not. I had two things for you. First one
Oh,
is
gosh.
this. This is from a bowl game. How disrespectful is this? He empties the quiver, bro, with the bow and
Bro,
arrow. he
See, I wasn't
Sam.
mad at you. I wasn't
He,
mad at your his little arrow impression, but like screaming in my face, that
okay,
your first instinct is to be like, bro, get out of here. Your first instinct is to shove him.
but dude,
He, bro,
not one arrow, not two. Like he had to empty it, like three, to just let him
it was
know
that was
about what was
aggressive.
going on.
That was
It
aggressive.
was a little bit aggressive.
See, I can't stand those defensive linemen that have like 15 wristbands and look, how many bands did that dude have on his leg?
I don't know.
That
Let's see it
tells
here.
me
Here,
everything that I
let's look
need
at
to
it one more
know
time. Let's count them.
about him, his personality, and the way he plays football. It's all look at me, look at me, look at me. That bro, I know exactly the type of player that. Look at that. Look at
Dude, I hadn't
bro.
even noticed that until you said that.
Four armbands on each leg. What like you're Mr. Look at me. Get out of here. Who does he think he is? Overshown?
Okay, the
Yeah,
next point on this, whether or not that you're offended by it's a little bit more of a serious topic, but what's your take on the Cam Ward situation? The Miami quarterback, they're in the Pop Tarts Bowl. More on
right
the
on.
Pop Tarts Bowl in a bit. They're playing Iowa State. Cam Ward is a Heisman finalist, has been the one guy to kind of elevate Miami football the entire year. I mean, think
Right.
about it. They were
Yep,
this close to making it into the college football playoffs.
for
Dude
sure.
was breaking records left and right. He plays in the first half and plays well in the Pop Tarts Bowl, and then at halftime is like, "Nah, I'm good," and doesn't play in the second half. You played. I will say that it seems like a lot of the noise from this is coming from non-members of the team and non-members of the coaching staff. So I don't know if they had this worked out in advance or not. Mario Cristobal said our conversations like this, which I kind of respect, our conversations that we have and that I had with Cam are going to remain private because it was a private conversation. But I hear a lot of people complaining. I haven't seen a whole lot from the players. They were too busy punching each other anyway on the sidelines in that clip that you saw. Where do you fall though on the Cam Ward not playing the second half of the Pop Tarts Bowl?
Bro, I fall in the fact that Miami should be happy that he played at all. I mean, bro, like
It is the
this
Pop
is
Tarts Bowl.
it's the Pop Tarts Bowl, and we're this again in this day and age of college football. The Pop Tart Bowl is a pretty big bowl, but because you're saying the name Pop Tarts, it kind of
Oh, that's
makes it
marketing
sound,
brilliance.
yeah, it makes it sound a little sillier and more gimmicky. But can't I mean players have done this the last couple of years where you've played the first half and they roll. I mean, Tylan Wallace is a prime example for Oklahoma State. I want to say before the year he entered the league, he played the first half of I want to say it was the Miami Bowl, I believe, the Presley's freshman year when he went off for a bunch of touchdowns, and then
Okay,
Wallace
yeah.
played. He played the first half and then sat out the second. This is always most of the time negotiated or talked about or told by the hey, Cam Ward put this Miami team in a situation. Cam Ward didn't fail Miami, okay? Miami failed Cam Ward. Miami should be in the playoffs right now. They should have had one of those 12 spots. Their defense could not hold up water, paper towel. They couldn't hold up anybody, and so they failed Cam Ward. They probably cost him the Heisman. Honestly, Cam Ward did his part. He did what he was hired to do. Put this offense on another stratosphere. He did that. The team, as far as the defense in Miami, the university let him down. So postseason wise, he didn't owe them anything. He played and then he rolled out, rightfully so.
That's why I'm always hesitant. Like if I were to just look at this and not take the approach of, hey, we don't know what he talked about with the coaching staff, we don't know what he did with his teammates. But if I were just a football casual and I looked at that, I mean it does have a little bit of a bad optic to it if you're not really paying attention or you don't like what's happening in the sport currently. Like, what do you mean? Like, you're only going to play the first half? Like, what? I'm not good enough for you to go out and finish this with me, with us? Like it has a little bit of that to it, but I'm not a firm believer in that because the game has changed to a certain level. Now, there's a little part of me that thinks if you start the game, you should finish the game. Just a little part of me, but I also understand that there are probably conversations that we're not privy to, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Like I don't have to be nosy. I don't have to know everything that they talked about. I'm just saying I didn't see a whole lot of his teammates. I didn't see the coaching staff completely ripping him. And even even if you haven't heard anything, like you realize with what he did, what between now and the draft is going to sound like every time that you mention Cam Warren.
Yeah.
Like, dude, all the talking heads and the draft nicks and all those guys, that this is going to be one of those that you're going to be absolutely tired of hearing about it by the time that we even get to the combine. About and the like Giants front office brass were in the house, like at the game too, even though they're so dumb, they win a game and end up costing themselves the number one spot. So it's not like everyone should just rush to their defense either. I mean, they get
Drew
rid of
Lock is
Saquon for crying out loud. He just ran for 2,000 yards. I mean, one of the dumbest situations I've ever seen handled.
Drew Lock is the most hated man in New York right now.
It's just I do feel like that it was a rush to judgment without truly knowing the facts because when NIL first started, do you remember everyone was looking for every reason under the sun to hate NIL? And one of the things that I heard was, man, there's just going to be this huge gap and rift in the locker room with the guys that are making a ton of money and the guys that aren't making money. Like that happens in the league. That happens in the league. Like and for the most part, I'm not saying that there haven't been scenarios like that because humans are jealous of by nature for the most
Right.
part. Of course, there are going to be people that are envious of that. But have you heard just this overwhelming amount of stories about, man, bleep that guy because he's making all this money? No, like for the most part, most everyone was happy for their teammates and happy for their bros that were making this money. And then they started sharing it with them, right?
Bro,
Look at Danny Stutzman. Look at what Danny did. Look at the gifts that college quarterbacks were now. Like Cam Ward bought
Cam
for his
Ward.
dudes.
Did you see the watches that he was giving
Yes,
his offensive linemen?
they
Bro,
ended up sharing it with guys that even weren't on scholarship for crying out loud. So it like everyone just automatically assumed like, these damn kids are just going to be selfish. Like when you say things like that and you put everyone in a box, it tells me you haven't been around young people. And I'm
yeah.
only around like young people for like half of the year with Tulsa football. And every year I come away more impressed with the caliber of young men that I'm around. It's like no, like there's a lot of people that have their heads that are screwed on straight, and they're going
Yeah,
to be
man.
okay, and they have a good, generous, giving spirit. So yeah, there hasn't been all this like this jealousy and stuff like that. You don't know what was talked about behind closed doors with Cam Ward and his teammates. If they didn't have a problem with it, then I don't think anyone should have a problem with it.
Bro, the fact that he played the first half was surprising to me alone. The fact that Shador and the fact that Travis, the fact that all those guys are playing. First of all, I do think it's tied into their NIL deal.
Some of it is, yes. Some of
I
that
do.
on the payment schedule is now I don't know whether like he'll get like half a check or something
Yeah,
like that for the game or whatever. But yeah, some of the payments are split up like that for them to go ahead and play.
I
And
think
if you're going to play the way that you brought up Travis and Shador, like what they do, they went out and took out an insurance policy.
insurance policy, baby. Bro, that was and again, they couldn't speak on the numbers because of I can't remember what laws was it. It was a HIPAA or something. One of the laws they were saying stating that they couldn't bring out the number of what to
Yeah, here we
get.
go, right here. Like this is an attorney that I follow that does sports law. He said
Yeah.
the belief is that Shadur and Travis each had coverage of over 18 million in permanent total disability, which would extend through the NFL draft.
Whew.
And of course, On3 had to put their NFL draft insurance post that was on there. But yeah, that's
18
what
mils,
happens,
not too
right?
bad.
Yeah, not too bad at all. Not too
Not
bad
too
at all.
bad. See, that new things are and again, players have had insurance, players that decide to like come back for a fourth year when they could leave in three or something like that. They've had insurance before, but to have it at that short time span to be make it more advantageous for them to play in the bowl game, different things like that. It's the new age of college football. So, bro, don't be mad that players roll out or make business decisions because it's a business now. This is what you guys wanted. This is what the sport turned out to be, and this is what it is.
Before we move off of the Pop Tarts Bowl, I do have to say, I think the bowl landscape is going to look a lot different in 26 because I think we're going to get to a point where the evolution of the college football playoff, like you can do something else with the bowl games and not potentially have even like conference tie-ins with bowl games, and I think that will go a long way with some of these. But if there is a bowl game, I think that deserves a ton of credit, and it's mainly from the marketing genius that is. It's the Pop Tarts Bowl because when's the last time until this game started happening that you heard a ton about Pop Tarts in general? And it's kind of taken on its own little culture within the college football landscape just because of silly ass marketing that they do.
Yeah.
Did you watch any of the game and see any of the stuff that came from that game?
I didn't. I Me and my dad sat down and watched a little bit of it, but I didn't see any of the marketing stuff. I'd heard stuff before the game where, what some of the stuff that they did. I've heard about some of the stuff they did last year, but I'm sure there's more antics that were happening that I
Well,
wasn't
watch
aware of.
this, man. Watch this. This is hilarious.
Please direct your attention, ladies and gentlemen, to the video board for an important presentation.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
This video is freezing. Yes, here's how they look. His issues. He's holding it because he's crying because the other one came down. Everyone's holding a toaster.
I
It's
can't
just
hear you, Pop. That video's too loud. I can't
what?
hear you.
Yeah, I mean, he's holding like tissues. Like you can see there what was left of the of the Pop Tart, the
From last
leftover version
year.
of the Pop Tart. It's just it's so good. They've raised the level of a nondescript bowl game to a level that is so silly and so stupid and so college football that I'm trying to think of another brand that's probably getting as much out of a bowl game sponsorship as what Pop Tarts is. Like, 'cause
Yeah,
I
man.
can't think of one off the top of my head.
They're definitely utilizing it, and like especially with all these, all the bowl games that are synonymous with tradition and everything, with all those bowl games going away and going specifically into the playoffs and being bowl games that matter. This is a bowl that's kind of like taking that opportunity to say, hey, let me be the top of the second tier bowl. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, right.
And
And it's
rightfully
okay.
so.
And it's okay. Let's see if this. Yeah, there he is. Notice they got to make sure that the Pop Tart is actually strapped in so they
Right,
don't,
just in case.
so he doesn't fly off the top of the building that's there.
Just in
Yeah, I
case.
love it. I love
Talk
it.
about
It's
insurance.
so silly, so silly. Speaking of silly, uh, the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. notice the DJ, the DJ booth. He's
In the
standing on
instead of
top of a
mower.
mower. What is
I guess that makes sense. I
it,
mean,
why are they sponsoring the Pinstripe Bowl? How many people that live in New York City proper are there? Like, hey, you know what we need? We need a zero turn mower.
hey man, it's an American thing to do. Mow your own lawn.
That is true. That is
Pinstripes.
that's true for sure.
That's how they sold it.
Let's see. There is one other that I wanted to play. I'm trying to think. Oh, UTSA got penalized during the Myrtle Beach bowl game because they at the back of one of the end zones they put like a fake beach with some sand and some beach chairs,
Yeah.
and they intercepted the ball and ran and jumped into the sand and were playing in the sand, and the referees penalized them for it. I'm like, what are we doing here? It's the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Like, we can't have fun in the Myrtle Beach Bowl at all. Jeff
Jeff,
Traylor, the head coach at UTSA, was a little miffed about that one, and I have to agree. Like, come on,
excessive
man,
celebration.
we got to have fun. It's the Myrtle Beach Bowl, for crying out loud. All right, before we wrap up, some of your thoughts on the games that we've got coming up, and I think we'll start with the game that's coming up tomorrow night. And it's man, I'm so excited for what potentially is going to happen in some of these games, because I do think that we have some really good matchups. But what are your thoughts on Penn State and Boise State coming up tomorrow from the Fiesta Bowl?
Man, I'm more like with that game, I don't really have a dog in the fight. I'm curious to see how good Boise State is compared to Penn State. I mean, they look pretty impressive the way they went out and demolished SMU and made, that quarterback look like Vinny Testaverde of 1987, throwing all those interceptions to Penn State. Uh, but is Ashton Genty gonna get the record? I mean, I feel like that's what all Oklahoma State fans are looking across the board. I mean, seems like he's what 200 away from Barry.
It's close to it.
So
Yeah.
so that's I feel like that's the thing that I'm looking at, because it kind of all goes together. Because if he's able to get the record, then I think Boise State is able to do what they've done all season long and put their team in a position to win the football game. Because if Ashton Genty is dominant, then Boise State looks good. But if Penn State can stop the running attack of Boise State and kind of limit him, then Penn State wins the game. I think it all goes hand in hand. So that's going to be very interesting to me.
I think if you are going to beat Penn State, you have to have a version of one. You got to have dudes up front, and you
Yeah.
got to be able to physically dominate them. Those are the teams that they've struggled with. The teams that can really hold their own up front, because Penn State defensively is kind of more of a like athletic style defense, and not just
Yes.
one that is that. But I mean, they got some dudes. Don't get me wrong, they
They got
got some absolute dudes.
come
But
off the
the
edge
teams
like
that
their
they've
hair's on fire.
struggled with have really physically challenged them up front. I think that Boise can for a while. I still think that Genty can have a big game, but I just think that it's too much. My personal belief is I think SMU's better than what Boise is, and Penn State handled them
Yeah,
easily. And it may not seem fair because it's an easier path and maybe potential changes happening in the college football playoff format. But I think Penn State wins this one, and maybe wins it a little easier than what some people thought. And that's not to take anything away from Boise. By the way, he's going to get his yards because he's got his yards against everyone. Now, he almost ran for 200 against Oregon earlier in the season. But to Joel Klatt's point, which was, if you're one of these Power Five teams, you fear a Boise State type team early in the season way more than what you do in the latter part of the season, because at this point in time, by the way, Penn State's probably playing their best football like
yeah.
of the entire year, even in the game in which they got beat by Oregon. But attrition
They don't have
just
the depth.
just
Yeah,
just wears you down, man. Just
yep,
wears you down. So I do like Penn State on Friday night in that game.
for sure.
Um, Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's not something like a 38-17 type game. The one that I think intrigues me as much as what Ohio State and Oregon does. Am I crazy because I think Arizona State has a shot against Texas?
Everybody does, bro. Everybody thinks that, and bro, I don't see it. I really, really don't see it. Everybody's talking about, you know, Scattaboo and this rushing attack, but first of all, they're missing their best wide receiver.
Yeah,
He-
Tyson.
He's not playing. And if you're just relying on Scattaboo, I know that their quarterback is a dual threat guy who gives them an option and gives them different things that they can do. But bro, versus Texas,
I
the way they
know,
can
and
play,
Texas got a ton of takeaways too. I think they're like first in the country with 29,
their defense don't play, bro. Their
first in
defense
yards
does not
attempt. I
play.
know, I,
And
I
they
know
got
they don't.
defensive backs galore. Like they got the Jim Thorpe Award winner over there as well. So no,
I I
I
like.
don't
I
see
think
it.
Texas wins, but I still think Arizona State covers.
Mm.
I do. The teams that Texas has struggled with, their two biggest challenges of the year. Obviously, they lost to Georgia.
Georgia.
Georgia's kind of been all over the place with how they play, but I I think Arizona State's defense is a little bit better than what people give them credit for. They are the best rushing defense in the Big 12. Now that doesn't mean that they're Georgia capable, but I do think that they are not getting as much credit as what they probably should be defensively, and that they can be in this game. They, man, I'm just not a Quinn Ewers fan, bro.
Bro,
I'm
in the
just
red
not.
zone especially.
If
Ugh.
he has one of those games again where he gets outside of himself and outside of the system, they struggle. And especially if they struggle a little bit to run the football, if Arizona State's able to neutralize it a little bit, because he is a guy that has to play within Sark's system. Like
Bro, and
he is not a guy that is just capable of taking everything on his shoulders, right? And being that true leader that identifies this, like the various uh, intricate details of a defense.
yeah.
And I just that's what worries me about Texas is Quinn Ewers more than anything.
Bro, needs to stop playing around, bro. Run the ball. Don't get cute. Don't try to do all this willy nilly. Run the ball, dog. Stop
Defensively, they're good
playing.
enough to beat anybody.
Yeah,
Like
man. Run the ball.
they're
Run the
good.
damn ball.
I think it's going to be closer though than what some people think. The Rose Bowl, man, what a scene, right? Oregon and Ohio State, and that rematch between probably say what you want about Ohio State, but you know as well as I do, pound for pound, one of the more talented teams in college football. The only really weakness that they have to me is getting out of their own way offensively. And their cornerbacks aren't that great, which is weird to think about Ohio State not having the best defensive backs in the entire country. Their safeties are incredible.
Yeah.
Safeties are great, but they have one of the most penalized cornerbacks in the entire country with pass interference. The other one's meh, okay, not Ohio State standard by any means. They just had a bad year, and Oregon is able to dictate things offensively with sneaky Dylan Gabriel as well as anyone in the country. That was a great game the first time that they played. I think this is setting up to be an absolute classic in the Rose Bowl.
Pop, do you trust Will Howard in the Rose Bowl?
Um,
Will Kansas State Will Howard in the Rose Bowl versus Oregon. Do you trust that?
I it's hard to say that you just trust Will Howard in general, but
Saying, bro. I'm saying.
it depends on what game plan they have. Are they going to piss down their leg the way that they have game planning wise against Oregon the first time and then also against Michigan? Or are they gonna have a game plan like they had against Tennessee? Like so much of it all comes down to what they do offensively to me because defensively, man, they're different than when they played the first time. Like Ohio State is different defensively from when they played the first time.
I just
But
think I just think Ohio State was well rested, motivated, and the coaching staff did a phenomenal job versus Tennessee. They had the trifecta. You don't have that against Oregon. You really don't. Actually, opposite. Oregon's well rested now. You got a coaching staff that seems to be a monster in Oregon. And then on top of that, bruh, you're not as motivated to prove everybody because you're the underdogs in this one.
Well, man, Tez Johnson is good too for Oregon. Tez Johnson is so good. Here's Ohio State. So 9 passes broken up against Tennessee, the most for Ohio State in 3 years. And since the Penn State game, defense has given up 3.5 yards per play and lead the country in that category. Like when they play to their ability, because they got dudes up front as well on them that really don't get talked about enough, which why to me the big story here is what Ohio State does offensively against Oregon.
Yeah, man. We'll see. We'll see. I got Oregon on that one though.
Last time Ohio State lost twice to the same team in the same season, 1894. So there's that. You can put that in your little stat book if you want to. And then the Sugar Bowl, the nightcap, which probably won't get started until after 8 o'clock our time easily if the Rose Bowl goes long. Trying to fit 3 bowl games in on one day, like in the wisdom that college football is. Notre Dame and Georgia. And Kirby Smart 6-2 in the college football playoff. I really like Notre Dame in this game against Georgia.
Bro, me too. And it's because we've been waiting for Georgia to lose all year. Bro, they haven't looked impressive all year. They
No,
don't
they
have a
haven't.
wide receiver that can catch a cold. And now you're playing.
Well, they can't run the ball either. You know, they're next to last in the SEC. The only team that's worse running the football than them in the SEC was LSU.
Bro, is Cavender twins a boyfriend gonna play?
Who's that? Wait a minute, I don't know their boyfriend.
One of them plays tight end for the Cowboys, and the other one is the quarterback for Georgia, Beck.
Oh no, Beck's done. Yeah, Beck. Yeah, he had surgery. He's done. This is the Gunnar Stockton show.
I mean,
And
he adds a running element that leaves you.
He
impressed.
does, but that looked a little bit chaotic in that second half when he came in, though, right?
Yeah,
didn't
man.
it?
That's the thing, and that's the thing, Pop. We all know when you're pressed into action, yeah, that quarterback, he gonna give you a go. You know what I'm saying? Nobody has any tape on him. He's just out there willing and dealing. He's letting the moment come to him. But when you have to like prepare for 2 weeks and study the game plan, and then you go and they give you the scripted plays, it's never the same. It's never the same, bro. Get out of here. Give me Notre Dame.
Georgia has struggled with a running quarterback the entire year. Rylan Leonard, pretty damn good at that. But man, Jeremiah Love is a freaking stud for Notre Dame. They kind of have everything that has given Georgia problems the entire year. And with that said, would any of us be shocked if the Georgia D that we saw against Texas shows up either? Like, no, we wouldn't be shocked by it, but they just haven't played consistently enough the entire year. I do like Notre Dame to win. I can't believe this stat was real, by the way. This would be the first major bowl win for Notre Dame in like 31 years. It's crazy to think about, but it's the truth.
They sure didn't get that thing in the Fiesta Bowl a couple of years ago.
No, they did not. They did not at all. And Notre Dame, I'm a little bit concerned because they did down the stretch give up some yardage, especially to like USC, like 550 yards. But defensively, you're facing Gunnar Stockton. They can't run the ball anyway. It's kind of playing into the hands of Notre Dame. And then they could absolutely go full Notre Dame on us and have a very bad performance. You'll love this, Dion. So Carson Beck, he, through NIL, was driving a Lamborghini, okay, worth about $300,000. Gunnar Stockton cruises through campus in his 1984 Ford F-150. It's got over 300,000 miles in it. It's one of those two-tone trucks. Doesn't have air conditioning, doesn't have power locks, and doesn't have power windows. So the juxtaposition between what Beck was driving and what Stockton is driving is absolutely hilarious.
I don't believe that, Pop. I don't believe that.
No, there's photos of him on it. ESPN just had that story that was up.
That's a gimmick.
You think that's a gimmick?
Bro, in the day of NIL, you're not telling me the backup quarterback for Georgia drives around in a pickup truck that doesn't have air conditioning. Do you know how hot it gets in Atlanta, Georgia?
Yeah,
Do you know how hot
yeah.
it gets in Georgia?
Here, this
There's
is
no
what
way he drives a truck that doesn't have air conditioning.
Beck was driving around in.
God, see, bro, see that's a whip, bro.
Yeah,
That's a whip.
yeah.
God
Solid,
damn,
right? Solid. Okay. And here, let me see. Have to takes me a minute to share this screen.
bro. I don't
Here,
think that's true.
here's what Stockton is driving around in. By the way, he is a country boy. Yeah, look at that.
That's my pappy's truck. He passed it down to me, and I
Well,
cherish it.
you gotta remember though, like he is about as country as they come because here's a photo of
Really?
him like gator hunting. Yeah, like one year for his birthday, they gave him like a bull and two cows or something like that. Like he is about as Georgia as they come. So
Goodness gracious.
completely different scenario from what we've seen with Carson Beck. I like Notre Dame in that game though.
Yeah, Notre Dame all the way, bro. Fight, give me the fighting Irish.
It's gonna be fun, man. Gonna be a
Yeah,
lot
man.
of fun. Well, dude, I'm glad you had a good Christmas, man, and looking forward to some of these games coming up here starting tomorrow night, and then all day on July 1st, and then we'll have the semifinals that we can chat about coming up here not too long from this very point. And again, just enjoy it. Just
Yeah.
enjoy it. You've got meaningful football that's being played for the first time this deep into the college football season with this number of teams that are still active for a national championship.
Ladies and gentlemen, like Pop said, just enjoy it. We need to get that
That's
on a t-shirt.
that's all you can try to do. That's all you can try to do. I haven't looked at the Niners score since that's kicker missed another one. Oh, that's 31-28 into the third. Detroit leading. So I'll go and share my rest of my miserable football season with my pro team, and hopefully they
At
can beat
least
the
you have a
Lions.
team that's somewhat in the hunt.
We've been out of the playoff picture for a long time. So have you, Dion.
Oh
So have
boy.
you.
Yeah, man.
That
Yeah,
one was a little
man.
rough yesterday, huh?
Damn Eagles.
And then to the Eagles as well. If you're Saquon, do you want to play? Do you want the record?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You want that record.
You
You
sure?
want you want that record.
Do the Eagles want him to get that record, or
You want that. I mean,
it's only 100 something yards? It's just a smidge over 100.
just a smidge,
Yeah,
bro.
it's like 110.
Bro, the point of playing this game, if you're Saquon Barkley, is not just to be the best running back in the league, is to live forever.
Legacy,
To live forever. And to get that, you know how long Eric Dickerson's been living off that record?
41 years.
Bruh. To take that thing and then your highlight be jumping over somebody backwards, bro, you already know that's, bro, to live forever, bro. Just like Benny the Jet said in the Sandlot, legends never die.
I
Well,
like how everyone's asking Eric Dickerson, "Do you want to break your record?" Eric's like, "Hell no, I don't want to
hell
break my
no.
record." I'm like, "No, I don't." He
Bro.
called Adrian Peterson and gave him crap for the year that he just barely missed it. It's like, no, I don't want people to break my record. Are you out of your mind? Why would I want that?
Oh man.
Don't want that at all.
You
All
s-
right, man. We'll do this again coming up Monday.
yeah, man. We'll be back.
All right. For everyone that was tuning in, appreciate you. Back at the crib every single Monday here on X and also on YouTube. If you missed the show, you can go back and watch it. House of Pop on YouTube. Sign up and subscribe there at YouTube so you can go back and watch the show. And the audio version will be available as well beginning tomorrow, wherever you get your podcast from. Have a great night from all of us here back at the crib.